What's going on, everyone? The market inched lower today, and around 89% of stocks in the S&P 500 closed in the red. Looking at today's heat map, it was definitely a red one, to say the least. But what's interesting is that there are a couple big warning signs flashing in the market right now that you definitely won't want to ignore as these next couple days roll by. And there's a handful of stocks that are making some very serious moves to the upside. So we have, I guess you could say, some mixed dynamics in today's video. And either way, some good opportunities in both directions. But with that being said, Tom, let's jump right into it.
Yeah, today's overall market was actually pretty bad. Like whenever we look at the S&P 500, it closed down pretty rough, down 0.7%, which as you can see is actually a lot more than the average percent drop over the past year, which has been only 0.44% to the downside. So it did actually fall by quite a bit, but I'll say this, Mike, most of that move was in pre-market this morning. Once the market opened, it was extremely choppy out there. I feel like I'm on like the Wolf of Wall Street right now talking about the chop. You know, it was this is like the definition of a choppy market today. So you know, it was pretty hard to trade unless you were pretty much trading between the range, which I actually saw a lot of traders doing, and I think adapting to that sometimes is a really smart way to go. So great job to everybody who did that, but it was a pretty crazy day for the market. But individual stocks had some pretty big moves, Mike, and we've been talking about Chewy quite a bit. It's up 27% today. I'll say this, Chewy needed this one, Mike. You know, we go to the daily chart. They were down in the dumps. They were stuck down by lows, but with this earnings move, they're back up to around that $20 to $21 mark, looking pretty good. I mean, it's always good to have a nice 27% pop on earnings.
No doubt about that. And for those of you who've been watching for some time now, you guys know we have been talking about Chewy for quite a while. They reported earnings, and basically they announced a $500 million share buyback. They beat on their earnings expectations, among other things, and this all kind of triggered like a mini short squeeze. Their short float is around 20%, so when you have the stock moving in a strong way to the upside, it definitely adds a lot of pressure to those shorts. But either way, Chewy stock is moving with a ton of momentum right now. This stock is one of my long-term holdings. I do like this for the long term. Over the past couple of years, it has definitely taken quite the hit, but it's great to see it pop up like this, and it was definitely one of the most popular stocks in the entire market today, which is always good to see.
Yeah, and you know, Chewy's been a stock that definitely hasn't been very popular lately, so it's definitely good to see it get that popularity back a little bit today. And you know, they talked a lot also about even pets being adopted and stuff like that, so I thought it was good to hear some numbers like that. Maybe things are getting a little bit better for Chewy down here as they're around these lows. And I'll say this, Mike, for the longer term, I think that there's still an opportunity, right? Like, I don't think that necessarily because it popped up today, we all need to, you know, say, oh my gosh, we missed it, right? Like, I think that there's still a lot of room on this stock. It only popped up. I mean, I know it's 27%, but, you know, whenever you look at dollars on the chart here, it's only like $5. And whenever you look at the way they moved over the past few years, you know, you could say that there's definitely a lot of room to still go. So hopefully they still have a lot more left in the tank, Mike, because I would be pretty excited if this stock would start to trade back towards that, I'd say like $25 to $30 range. That would be even awesomer.
Alrighty, now one good thing with this stock is that it kind of has a mind of its own. We can see it by looking at the bottom right corner that the correlation to the market as a whole is certainly not that strong for Chewy, which is actually a good thing, because if the market, you could say, starts to rise or fall in the short term, it won't really have that much of an impact on Chewy, because it just kind of moves by itself. But either way, keep a close eye on this one. When this stock does move, it tends to move like in some pretty strong ways over the course of multiple weeks and months. But another stock that had quite the day today, Tom, was ANF, and this one also reported earnings before open today, just like Chewy. And ANF is Abercrombie and Fitch, and this stock has been rocketing over like the past couple of years. It went from lows of like around, you could say like $16 a share, all the way up to highs of almost $200 a share today, which is just crazy to say. There was definitely a lot of squeeze type price action on today's intraday chart, but it's just one of those stocks that is moving with so much momentum where it's like you can't help but not to at least look at it in the short term. It is up quite a bit, which obviously isn't the best thing for new longs, you can say. However, there is a lot of momentum with it. So, like, for example, if we see continuous bullish pressure on the high of day tomorrow, that can, obviously present more bullish scalp opportunities. And at the same time, once the trend kind of cools down a little bit, there might even be some opportunities for some mean reversion style plays, or, I guess you could say put plays.
Yeah, there really could. I mean, that short-term volatility is fantastic. The movement today was nuts. 24% on a stock, like whenever you go to the daily chart and it was already around highs and then it just extends out like this. That is one of the crazier stocks over the past few years that I've seen, Mike. So figured we had to mention ANF, right? It's a huge move. And another one that we just have to mention today is also ASTS, which is AST Space Mobile, which is actually a pretty crazy company here. So guys, start to, I guess, open your minds, right? We're getting into the world of satellite phone services, and I know people have talked about that quite a bit, but this is a satellite to phone service provider, and they had a great deal with AT&T and Verizon recently. So that is huge, Mike, to see them surge 50% with these deals. And if essentially what this is going to do is it's going to allow them to cover the entire country, even like the remote areas, the rural areas, whatever you want to say. If there's like a dead zone, they're trying to get those covered with these satellite connections. So it was very interesting. There was a lot that went into the deal, and I don't want people necessarily get confused by that. But going over to ASTS's stock, 69% in one day. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, Mike.
True. And, when you're looking at a stock like ASTS or even ANF or any other stock that is making like a giant move in the short term, keep in mind that you have to play those in a smart way. And more specifically, it's like the length of the uptrend is something that nobody knows. But what is known is that for as long as there is constant pressure on, you could say those recent highs, and there's more and more money flowing into the stock, that is what helps the stock run even higher. So for as long as that is true, there's opportunity playing these types of stocks. But at the same time, as soon as that ends, you have to be willing to adjust your position and make sure you're not left holding the bag. So keep that in mind, not only with ASTS or ANF or any other stock out there, but you could just say keep it in mind as like a general market principle that really applies to all types of markets. But enough with, I guess you could say, these crazy stocks for today. Another thing that we have to talk about is what is going on with the VIX. So looking at the volatility index, we can see it's up by around 10.5%, which is definitely something that you don't see every day. Basically, the volatility index simply represents how volatile the market is expected to be. The higher this goes, the crazier the market is expected to be. And most of the time, this mainly rises when there's like increased fear and panic associated with the overall market. So normally, VIX only goes up when the market falls. And today, technically, the market did fall, and it fell by around 0.7%, which is, I guess you could say, a decent amount for 2024, but I guess you could say in a broader historical context, it's not all that crazy. But the main thing is that you normally don't see the VIX up over 10% when the market is only down 0.7%. So what this essentially means is that market makers are already pricing in the fact that the market is about to get a whole lot crazier, and the VIX is screaming that at us right now. And this is actually a really good thing for short-term traders, because what the VIX also represents is the price of options. The higher VIX goes, the more expensive the options on the S&P 500 or the overall market get, which is, again, a good thing for short-term traders. So I just wanted to bring this up there, and the key takeaway with this is that the market's most likely going to get more volatile in the short term. So be prepared for that, and I'm pretty excited to see the VIX moving like this.
Yeah, me too. And, sometimes when the VIX goes on these runs like this, it can go on some pretty massive runs. Like, we've seen runs on the VIX recently, like in the middle of March heading into May, where it ended up running up like 70%, right? And obviously the market had a pretty massive pullback. And then there's other times like where the VIX might just, chop up and down very slowly. It'll have big days and then some, fade back lower as the market kind of stabilizes a little bit and etc. So I'm kind of curious, Mike, like, is this going to be the time where we're going to get a true like huge uptrend with the VIX, maybe back to resistance, or is this just going to be one of those like short-term pops? That's what I'm curious with, but I'm definitely going to be watching this situation very, very closely, especially with the SPY starting to turn over a bit. If we go to like an hourly chart on the SPY, you can see there's a huge resistance overhead. The red arrows are pointing right at it at 531.50. We've been rejecting there pretty bad, and in after hours today, we actually just fell below the 525 support, so not looking good in the short term, that's for sure.
And whenever you look at the S&P 500 or the VIX, you have to look at NVIDIA, especially nowadays. So NVIDIA set a brand new record high yet again today of around $1,155 each. So this stock is still running with a lot of momentum. But the key thing with this one is to look at it because it will have a very big influence on the overall market. For example, if we continue to see NVIDIA rocket to the upside, that will make it that much easier for the market to hold strong. On the other hand, if we see a whole lot of profit taking with NVIDIA, things can get very scary very quickly, not only for the semiconductor industry, but for the whole market for multiple reasons. So keep a very close eye on NVIDIA right now. What this stock does will have a very giant direct influence on the entire market.
Yeah, and as we know, they influence all the other chip stocks too, like AMD, Intel, ARM. We see a lot of price action come off of those stocks as well, and then those stocks influence the market too. So it's like they influence the market in so many different ways, right? That's what's crazy about NVIDIA, and we hear about them almost all the time. Like Elon even had some news with them just a couple days ago. So I'm definitely going to keep my eyes on it though, Mike. That recent high right around this like 1150 mark. I know today it hit new highs of like 1155. In reality, I'll just call that a rejection, right? It didn't really get like a huge breakout, just barely broke. So I'll be watching for that breakout though tomorrow. If we do end up breaking out, then I'll adapt and go ahead and trade it up. But in the short term here, I'm kind of liking some of the rejections on like the overall market better. And I think that there's just a lot of opportunities out there as well besides NVIDIA, right? Like a lot of people feel like that they have to trade that stock specifically, and guys, there's so many more fun stocks out there too.
All right. So obviously keep a close eye on NVIDIA and the rest of the market going forward. But we also have some pretty interesting earnings and economic data set for tomorrow as well. So what's on the list, Tom?
Yeah, tomorrow before open, we actually have Canopy Growth, CGC, one of the more popular marijuana stocks, set to report earnings tomorrow before open, as well as KSS or Kohl's, Foot Locker, Dollar General, so a few retailers there, even Best Buy, Hormel Foods, so quite a bit there tomorrow before open. In after hours, though, I think it's going to get a little bit more interesting. We have Costco, which, as we all know, one of the biggest stores, and they'll obviously talk a lot about consumer spending and stuff like that. Then we have Dell, which is a tech stock, MRVL, which deals with chips. So tomorrow and after hours is going to be pretty big.
And then we can't forget about the economic schedule tomorrow either. So we do have some GDP data set to come in 1 hour before the market opens. So be ready for that. And then we do have a couple of things on Friday with some PCE data and personal income and personal spending. But we'll hit on that more in tomorrow's video. So let's jump right into some setups and predictions for tomorrow. A stock I'm watching very closely right now is ITB, and it is to the downside. So ITB was a recent big money play. Essentially, it is a bunch of home construction stocks all under one ticker symbol, and the big money's been doing pretty well with this one. They bought the 100 strike put options for July 19th, and they put just under like $3 million into this play on May 23rd. ITB has been steadily falling, and I would not be surprised if it continued to fall lower. This $100 support area will be big. Again, it is an ETF though, so keep that in mind, but the price action's been pretty weak in the short term, and plus we're starting to see like the market overall start to weaken just a little bit, which helps a setup like this one. But either way, ITB is on my radar to the downside.
Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite big money plays in the short term, and I know a lot of people are watching that like 100 to like 102 support in the short term, and I'll definitely have my eyes on it, but I'll tell you what, it's been up here for a while. It might just break down below some of those, so definitely going to be watching it very closely over the next couple days. With my first play, I'm looking at Boeing here, and it's not looking good for Boeing again, Mike. If we were looking at the daily chart, it looks pretty rough. They had 2 green days recently after a pretty rough red day on some bad news last week. week, and they're starting to turn back over again. And what I'm looking for tomorrow is a good continuation down off of today. I'm looking for a move down to around 170 and then a breakdown below that. So overall with Boeing, it's going to be more about reading that momentum. But if we do see some nice bearish selling pressure, then I will look at them down. And there was actually some bad news today with some airlines as well. So that's just kind of influencing, airlines in general. And of course, Boeing's not an airline stock, but they make a lot of commercial airliners.
Alrighty, and another stock I'm watching pretty closely is UVXY, and we talked about this one in a little bit in yesterday's video, and it had a nice move higher today. I would not be surprised if it continued to march higher, especially if we do see continued weakness out of the market overall. So either way, I'm watching UVXY to the upside, and the more weakness we see in the overall market, the better it is for this ETF.
Yeah, let's go VIX, right? VIX in the short term is going to get pretty fun, I have a feeling. So I'll keep watching UVXY as well. Hopefully there's some pretty good opportunities out of that. With my next play, I'm looking at UPS. And if we go out to the daily chart, UPS is on a major daily support right around the 134 mark. And we can see that they've been consolidating here for over a year now, or just about a year, it looks like. So I'm going to really watch this support closely. If it breaks under 134, then I will look at puts. And, it's a major support, right? Like we can see it. We can tell that that's where it bounced up last time, but let's get some confirmation. Let's go look at the book map. There's even some buyers stacked up at 134, showing us that support, even like 133.50. So I'm really watching this whole area down here. It's going to be a big spot for UPS. If we end up getting a good breakdown, I'll look for opportunities down. But even if there's like a nice support bounce, I think there could be some nice plays back up in the short term with all this negative selling pressure.
All right, there we go. All right, well, it's now about that time for today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have Microsoft to the downside.
MSFT, it's looking pretty bad today, right? Like the overall market started turning over. A lot of tech stocks are down, and Microsoft's going even lower in after hours. But if we zoom out a little bit, there's a pretty big support right around 425. So if we get under there, then I will look at opportunities down.
All right, with the next one, we have Bank of America also to the downside.
Yeah, I was watching the banks this morning again, Mike. I'm going to watch them tomorrow below 38.55 here on BAC.
All right, and then with the last one, we have TLT, Old Faithful, for both directions.
I gotta love it. Yeah, if they drop under 88.65, I will look at them to the downside. If they end up breaking above this intraday resistance right around 89.30, then I will look at opportunities up.
All right, so we have the upside level for a move higher. We have the downside level for a move lower. That's with TLT. Don't forget about the downside levels with Bank of America and Microsoft. These three stocks are on watch for potential day trades tomorrow. Only if they break through the levels Tom listed. The stronger and more consistent the price action is, the better the setups become. If they do not break the levels Tom listed, then do not force the trades. Again, we were only looking for like higher quality, strong setups. There's no need to force a setup if the price action is just mediocre and if the setup just isn't there. But either way, keep a close eye on these three stocks going into tomorrow. And let's jump right into today's big money trade, and that is with WMB. So today's big money trade was a $384,000 put play on the WMB 41 strike puts for July 19th of 2024. Looking at WMB, this stock has been selling off slightly over the past couple days. These puts are already in the money, and there are about like 50 days worth of time with this setup. Overall, it's not like necessarily like the biggest big money trade that we've ever seen, obviously, but the price action in the short term has been pretty good, and the energy sector as a whole has been pretty weak, especially today, which definitely helps this setup. My main concern with this one is if this put option is just being bought as a hedge to a much larger stock position, which there is no way of knowing with 100% certainty. But either way, it's definitely not bad, and like any other setup out there, the more, I guess you could say, bearish price action that this stock has, the better these put options will reflexively become.
Yeah, and there's actually a big support here in the short term on WMB, right around like the $40, like $39.90 to $40 mark. So honestly, in the short term, like if you want to play it a little safe, maybe just over the next couple days, wait for a breakdown below that level, and then maybe try to get in as it starts to break below support. But overall, Mike, I like the setup quite a bit. This stock is, in my opinion, a little bit overextended in the short term, and I know it's the 41 strike puts. I would think that they're looking pretty good right now, so I'll definitely keep my eyes on this big money play and that support that I listed. You guys can see that right here. I'll draw like some red arrows to them so you can get that visualization. But if we do get that good breakdown, I think it could be a pretty good move here in the short term. And when I say short term, I don't necessarily mean just tomorrow, but obviously this goes out to July, so maybe for like the next week or two.
There we go. But yeah, Tom, we are set for a very interesting next couple days for multiple reasons. We have some areas of the market moving to the upside in a very powerful way, just like Chewy, ASTS, ANF, of course, NVIDIA, and a handful of other ones. But at the same time, we're seeing a lot of other areas of the market weaken quite a bit. Like we said in today's intro, 89% of stocks in the S&P 500 today closed in the red. 89% is definitely quite a big amount. So definitely keep that in mind going forward. And again, the VIX is starting to shoot up in a pretty big way as well, which is a good thing for short-term traders. So good stuff ahead. And one thing is that if you are new to the channel, consider demolishing that subscribe button to get our videos recommended to you more often. In every single video, we cover all the important things about the market that you should be aware of, and charts and information that you just won't find anywhere else, as well as some pretty interesting big money plays every single day. So consider demolishing that subscribe button. And we also want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Sweet Corn in the Profits channel. He just hit it out of the park today with Chewy. So huge shout out to Sweet Corn. You've been a phenomenal member of the community for so long now. So you were due for another member of the day, and keep up all the great work there, and hopefully Chewy keeps on running.
Yeah, let's go, Corners. That was awesome. Hopefully you did well at golf today, because I know you did very well in the stock market with Chewy. So that was awesome to see, man. 10% on the day. That is a great move. So let's go, Cornish. You've been in the group for a long, long time, and you're always out there making great posts and stuff. So had to give you a shout out today whenever one of your favorite stocks started moving.
There we go. Well, thank you all so much for watching. I'm pretty excited for the market tomorrow. And besides that, let's have a great rest of the week.